Hi there. You're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are 2/3 of Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com.
Unnatural Selection After Dark. The sun has just set, so now we can talk about all the crazy things that happened this week, and it means we won't get sued because no one's listening.
It's like the regular podcast, but we shower and you can see our dicks. So, but obviously, as it's an audio medium, you as the listener won't know the difference.
Yeah,
but,
of course. Yeah, I mean, the two-way glass, I mean, or just two-way glass, otherwise known as glass.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just regular glass. Do you remember Big Brother After Dark?
I do remember Big Brother After Dark.
It was just showing them showering, just showing people's cocks.
Yeah, it was porn, George.
It was just porn. It wasn't
on Channel 10.
It wasn't a TV show. It was just like, now look at these chicks nude and showering.
But they were having conversations while they were showering.
But it wasn't really like substantive. Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's just good to watch people, you know?
I'm starting to think this Big Brother show, no good. I think John Howard was right. Cancel it. Is it still on?
I don't know. Speaking of still on, the US government is still on?
Yeah, so you know that a government... so this is a really quick averted government shutdown. So this is a news and politics podcast, and we don't just generally talk about shows from the early 2000s where people casually sexually assault each other on national television and it's like a running national gag rather than like a very serious problem that needs to be addressed. No, we talk about politics. And the biggest thing in US politics is that the US House has passed a spending bill hours before the deadline, before a government shutdown. Now, if keen-eared listeners of the show might have listened to the show last week and say, George, I didn't hear anything about a government shutdown. You guys didn't mention anything. Was there a government shutdown planned? Is this something that's been ramping up for months and we just haven't heard about? Or no. This was like a snap averted government shutdown, which kind of like emerged midweek, where it seemed like Elon Musk, President Musk, as people have been calling him, had just decided that he wasn't a big fan of the continuing resolution that was going to be put forward in the US House, and decided to like whip up a bunch of like anti-government kind of rhetoric and say, hey, Republicans don't vote for this. So the thing that even Donald Trump was a fan of just like pushing through for expediency's sake became like a political football. And then given that, so what they do is they do these continuing resolutions, right? Where rather than actually sit down and sort out the issues which divide us, what they do is both parties sit down and they go, I don't like the things that you spend money on. You don't like the things that I spend money on. Shall we kick the can down the road for a little while? And they go, let's kick the can down the road for a little while. And then they do that. And that's called the continuing resolution. And rather than doing this, Elon Musk tried to like blow it all up with a big, bag of TNT. And I think the most revealing thing about all of this is it just kind of shows that Donald Trump is not really as in charge as he might, like to be. It's so weird because like in previous situations like this, Donald Trump has just like fired the offending person out of a cannon, and just, fired them into the sun. But because it's Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, and someone who gave him, I think the total tally was like $250 million towards his re-election efforts. I think Donald Trump might be a little bit hesitant to do that for some reason, which is unclear to me.
Couple of fivers behind the couch, just sort of just found them in the
it's like when a bully in a cartoon gets and just turns you upside down and just shakes you from the legs, and then $250 million falls out. Yep. So Elon Musk was threatening to like primary people who didn't vote the way that he was wanting to go on this continuing resolution, but it's emerged like in the last 24 hours that they found a solution. The US House has passed a continuing resolution with 366 yay votes and 34 nays. So they managed to find a solution. We don't know what's in this continuing resolution bill, really. Like, no one's been clear about what elements of the previous. They were just
Would you like to do it again?
Yes. Well, it's just like Elon Musk was just making up a bunch of bullshit about stuff that was in the continuing resolution that wasn't in there, just like actively just pumping out disinformation using his status as, the most followed person on the social media platform that the more I say it, the more it sounds like an oligarchy.
Only Taylor Swift would have more follows than Elon Musk.
I don't know.
There's got to be people like Kim Kardashian would have to have more followers than Elon Musk, surely.
Well, because it's his platform, and so he prioritizes himself and his reach. So Elon Musk has 205 million followers on X.
Okay. How much does Taylor Swift got?
Here are some other top followed accounts on X. Barack Obama's got 131 million. Cristiano Ronaldo's got 113 million. Justin Bieber, 109.
So he's just check Taylor Swift for me. I just want to just get a vibe for it. Just a vibe check.
Followers on Twitter. Hang on.
On X. Sorry, let's get the branding right.
Sorry, X. Yeah, Elon Musk is the most followed person on Twitter at the moment.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And he owns it, so there you go.
Yeah, well, what a coincidence.
What does it mean?
What does it mean? Why is it so? What a coincidence that the guy who owns the platform seems to be artificially boosted. That's so
So this is all happening. Like, Trump's not even in power yet. Like, the inauguration's like what, January 20 or something?
Yeah, there's a saying that you only have one president at a time, which basically refers to this lame duck period where the next president has been elected, but the other president is still the president. And the saying is meant to reinforce the idea that the person who's currently in the White House is still the president. But this is probably one of those situations where that's not the case. Like, Donald Trump is flying around, he's meeting people, he's making foreign policy announcements. Like, Joe Biden has definitely receded into the bush, receded into the hedge like Homer Simpson.
Joe Biden could be dead. I wouldn't actually know.
Well, neither would Joe Biden, as it turns out, because he's not making any real sort of like big announcements. He's not. Apparently, the staff is hard at work behind the scenes, kind of like locking in some of the gains of the Inflation Reduction Act, and making sure that money goes out of government coffers, so Donald Trump can't just like come in day one and claw it all back. But I really haven't heard a lot from Joe Biden since, since Donald Trump won the 2024 election. He's basically just like ceased to exist for all intents and purposes. We're in December of 2025, and all of the crazy shit that Donald Trump has done is like before his 4-year presidential term. You know what I mean? Like, this is all happening before the guy is even president.
It's a lot of announcements. Whether or not any of it actually gets action is another question. I entirely.
Guess.
So anyway, the US government will still function. People will be able to.
Well, to the extent that the US government ever functions properly, it will continue to function at that unacceptable level of functioning for the time being. So.
Speaking of Joe
Happy
Biden,
Christmas. Merry Christmas, everyone. All to all those government workers who are freaking out as to whether they'd be able to afford rent over Christmas. Happy Christmas. Yeah, it's all right. We sorted it. Don't worry about it.
Until next time.
Yeah, until next time. Yeah, and there was a lot of talk about Donald Trump wanting to raise the debt limit as part of this negotiation, basically just kind of like do away with the idea of the debt limit. And personally, I love that idea because the debt limit is the dumbest conversation that you and I need to have once every kind of like 6 to 12 business months. It's like, oh, they're approaching the debt limit and they're going to raise it. And then they're not going to raise it. And then they do raise it. It's just like, if we could just never have to have that conversation again, that would be ideal.
It does seem like a bit of a merry-go-round of fuckery.
Yeah. It basically exists as a mechanism to provide Aaron Sorkin like convenient plot details for the West Wing. That's really the only main reason that the debt ceiling exists.
And that show's been off air for years,
a decade at least.
So it's antiquated.
It's not a great. As far as I'm aware, it's the only advanced country that's got a mechanism that like artificially limits the amount of money that the country's Congress has already provisioned. It's a weird. It's like we've already decided we're spending this money, It's like we've already decided all the groceries that we're going to buy, and then we just put like a $200 limit on the credit card, and so we go to check out, and it's like we haven't got enough money, and we're like, we know. It's dumb. It's
like,
so dumb.
It's like me getting to the checkout and furiously trying to transfer cash into my savings account.
100%. You're
from my
there
other
at,
account.
at the ATM.
I'm just like,
at
sorry,
the checkout.
love. Sorry, I
the
know
NAB
I need to
open.
buy this gift card. I know I need to buy this gift card for my sister for Christmas.
Which I've already said I wanted, and I've scanned through.
I've scanned through. I just need. I was saying I transferred it to the wrong account. Give me one more second. I'm just going to go back.
Let me give
100.
Let me give Mike Johnson a quick call and see if we can work this out. It's the dumbest possible system. And I look forward to it not being a thing anymore if that is eventually the case. But the reason that they're talking about doing this is because Donald Trump's allegedly wanting to push through a bunch of, massive tax cuts. And he doesn't want, because as soon as he does that, that's going to immediately impact the deficit and therefore the national debt. So basically he wants the power to just ram through whatever dumb changes he wants and not have there be any kind of like consequences. They're just borrowing. But that's what, hey Adam, it's always the solution to the problem. No matter what they want, no matter what they want to buy, just borrow more. The Republicans go, oh, we don't want money for food stamps. That's ridiculous. We will, however, airdrop cash onto the Pentagon. Just billions of dollars of cash physically dropped onto the Pentagon. That's fine.
Well, maybe not.
That's
maybe
fine
not
and normal.
If you listen to some of the rhetoric around their campaign, it was all about removing money out of the Pentagon.
No, but it's about the wars that they want to support. There's just different wars. The Democrats are like, oh, we love the war in Ukraine. Like, we want to support that. And then the Republicans are like, we love the war in Israel. We want to support that. But there's no party in the United States that's like, should we be waging desert forever wars? There's no party that represents that constituency. They're just like, which side of Europe or the Middle East should we be blowing up?
Tulsi Gabbard is pretty
Tulsi Gabbard, Putin Suj and Assad's best buddy. Tulsi Gabbard, the one that they were the intelligence agencies warned might be a Russian asset. That Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
Cool fun and normal. Cool country, guys.
Cool, fun, and normal. And we mentioned Joe Biden before. I think he'll be quite happy, as well as Hunter Biden, his son. Because a former FBI informant who pleaded guilty on Monday, he pleaded guilty to providing false information to federal authorities about Joe Biden and Hunter Biden months before the 2020 presidential election. So this chap, Alexander Smirnov, was indicted this year in connection with funneling false information to his FBI handler about the Bidens in June 2020, falsely claiming that officials from Burisma, you might remember that company's name, and a Ukrainian energy company that employed Hunter Biden, had paid the father and son $5 million each during the Obama administration when Biden was vice president.
So these were the allegations that were circulating a couple of years ago, saying that, the Biden corruption family and all about, kicking money up to the big guy and all those things that people were talking about as being the basis for the Biden family corruption allegations. All of
they
that
tried to
stuff
impeach him
originated from this guy's testimony, right? And what we've just found out is this guy's been convicted for lying about those
made
facts.
It up. Yeah, he
completely made it up out of whole cloth. Like, it's completely fictitious. And so I'm just wondering when those Republicans that were talking about impeaching Joe Biden and, saying that he was going to be arrested and Biden crime family, do we get like a written apology or is it more like a gift basket, like an edible arrangement apology? When should we be expecting our
some
apology?
Some flowers with a nice note in it, I think. Just a nice bunch of roses.
It's like, my bad. Sorry, I accidentally peddled Russian disinformation to advance my own political interests. Signed, the Republican Party, now and forever. Yeah, it's weird that there's no apology or any kind of recognition of the fact. Like prominent Republicans relied on this guy's false testimony. They cited it in their allegations for Joe Biden's impeachment inquiry. Like, it is the basis for nonsense shit that the Republicans tried to pull later on. And like, as far as I'm aware, no one seems to be talking about it. No one cares. Everyone's like, well, Joe Biden's out of there. Like, who cares? But it's like, if this is like finding out Benghazi never happened or something. You know what I mean? It's just like it was the basis of the thing that they used to bash their political opponent for months.
For years. It's still
Years at
going.
this point.
Like, if you go on the internet,
Yeah.
there are still like people talking about this as though, yeah, man, like there's that source, this, you know, like
Bloody
the
Burisma, mate.
thing.
Do your own research. Google it. You know, Biden crime family. Like, meanwhile, Donald Trump is literally using the government to fill his. Did you see he's launched a perfume? We didn't talk about it on the show. The motherfucker launched you're about to be president. You won. You are going to line your pockets with so much Saudi oil money. You're not even going to be able to keep your pants up. And he's launching like fragrances. So
he's an artist, George. He's an artist.
Bullshit artist. he literally, he sat next to Jill Biden there at someone's, I think it was the reopening of Notre Dame a couple of weeks ago. And she was like being pleasant and like just like chit-chatting with him and just like being a good sport and trying not to like, you know, gouge his eyes out with a fucking dessert fork.
Spoon. Yeah.
Yeah. And Trump took a screenshot of her like smiling at him and said it was like, I forget the wording, but it was something to the effect of like, you know, it's like she was reacting to his fragrance somehow. The fragrance is called Fight, Fight, Fight. I was just like, you are literally using the wife of the guy you have just like, talk about being a sore winner. Using the image of the wife of the guy you've just defeated, like kind of suggesting she wants to fuck you to sell like you're about to become the president again. And you're like hawking products. What are you doing?
What's the fragrance called?
It's called Fight, Fight, Fight. Like what he said when he was shot at.
I reckon that'll do pretty well over Christmas. I reckon, you know, if you're after, and look, if it doesn't do well over Christmas, there's always the Boxing Day sales.
Yeah.
And
I think
you might have got those in the US.
You might want to take that, pick this one up in the discount bin. I don't think you want to buy this full price, given that it's mostly.
It smells like pure gasoline.
60% of the time, it works. Every time.
Every time. But like, this is why
it's literally Sex Panther. That is literally what this is.
But this whole thing was like the guy's name is Smirnov, which I find
you don't trust a Russian name
hilarious.
Smirnov, a Russian
Alexander
name after vodka.
Smirnov. Joe Biden had to obviously he's pardoned Hunter Biden for like any and all crimes.
Yeah,
which is probably partly related to this, right?
Can you get pardoned for future crimes?
I don't know about future crimes. I think it's like anything that you've potentially done. I don't know.
Or will do.
Hunter Biden was convicted on federal charges in June and pleaded guilty to tax charges in September. So Hunter Biden has done some dodgy stuff.
Oh, I mean, he lied on a tax form and like said he was not under the influence of drugs when he bought a gun and like checked that box when they didn't even prove that he was on drugs when he did that, but like he was taking drugs around that time. So it's, I don't know. It seems like pretty fucking tenuous to me that they're clearly just wanting to go after Hunter Biden to embarrass Joe Biden, right? That was the whole point. And because Joe Biden wanted to be Mr. Rule of Law, he didn't interfere with the prosecution. It was a special prosecutor that was appointed. He didn't have any involvement with it. He stepped away. They even reached a plea deal in court. And there was like in the courtroom as they were agreeing to the plea deal, and basically the judge, who was a Trump appointee and a Trump lackey, blew it up. Basically, she's like, I don't know if this plea deal means what you think it means. And then they got to arguing, and then the whole thing blew up, and then ended up being like an actual prosecution. But like it was at the stage where the prosecution and the defense had agreed they'd reached a plea deal, and then the judge blew it up for Trump on Trump's behalf at Trump's behest, you would think, in order to, you know, throw some more sand in the gears for the Biden family. Like the whole thing is just
allegedly. There's no. We don't.
Okay, well, we know that the judge was appointed by Trump. Like these are all verifiable facts. You know, we know that he didn't get involved. That Joe Biden didn't get involved in the prosecution, even when he was asked deliberately. All that sort of stuff.
We don't know that Donald Trump said.
We don't know that he directed
this plea deal.
We don't know that he directed, but he did that thing. He probably did that thing that mob bosses do, like Tony Soprano, where he said,
"Oh, it'd be a shame.
It'd be a shame if something happened to it. That's a very nice plea deal that you got there. It'd be a shame if something happened to it."
Another interesting thing I found about this was that Smirnov began working as a confidential human source for the FBI in 2010.
Has the
and the case,
FBI ever got it right? You know what I mean? Like, you hear a lot of stories about the FBI being like, and it turned out it was actually just the guy's buddy Fred, and he actually convinced them to do the bombing. It's just like, what is the FBI doing? It's just going around the country to various mosques, be like, how good would it be to blow up a building? Anyone? Any takers? Anyone? You there? So many stories.
The case against him, against Smirnov, was brought by Special Counsel David Weiss, who had previously investigated Hunter Biden on gun and tax charges. So the same guy that went after, I guess, Hunter Biden for those other crimes we mentioned is also the same guy that is now going after, or has indicted and now he's been found guilty. The supposed confidential source that's at the head of the whole Burisma debacle. I thought it was a bit sort of like
and yet still,
perhaps, I don't know.
Still wanted to pursue the charges against Hunter Biden, even though he knew that the thing that originated the whole special counsel investigation into him was based on a completely false premise. That's what I mean. Like, it's the whole idea of like searching. They've defined the target of the investigation, they being the Republicans, and then the prosecution's job is to like find a justification with which to prosecute the target of the investigation being Hunter Biden. And they'll find the thing is, like, there's that book, I think it's called like 2 Felonies a Day or something, where it talks about how people just like, you do kind of do crimes in your everyday life that you may or may not necessarily even be aware of. Like, things just happen in life where you do things and you're acting more or less within the bounds of the law. But like, if you're being a real technical pedant asshole about it, you could define particular things as crimes. And if you're so inclined, you could prosecute them. Like, I very much
What
doubt.
are you guilty of, George? Are you trying to admit to something here? Is
nothing?
This
nothing. Not me.
Did you go through the red light on in Ringwood there?
You can't see my hands under the table, but I'm committing a crime right now. I think it's very plausible that Hunter Biden's prosecution was purely political. Am I saying he didn't do any crimes? No, obviously he's like done a bunch of drugs and had sex with sex workers, and like he's done things that in the US are illegal. But I guess what I'm saying is the reason he was prosecuted for all those crimes is because he's Joe Biden's son, and they wanted to use that to embarrass him.
I felt like revenge for the whole like Trump
indictments and the Trump impeachments. Oh, well, you know, you're investigating us for crimes, but we're investigating you for crimes. So it's like, I guess we're all criminals. Like, it all comes out in the wash. It's like, no, but Donald Trump is like a professional fraudster, bullshit artist extraordinaire. And like Hunter Biden, like, lied on his taxes and like ticked the wrong box on a form. You know what I mean? Like, it's a very different type of, you know, prosecution that's being leveled.
Different stakes.
Yeah. Anyway, so he's entered his plea in a California federal court, and he's pleaded guilty to those charges of basically leading the FBI astray, and
he being Smirnov.
Smirnov, yeah, and so he's going to be. His attorneys have agreed to recommend the court impose 4 to 6 years in prison and 1 year of supervised release, and they agreed to around $675,000 in restitution. So, yeah, well, we'll see what happens there. But, you know, it really does, I don't know, not that anyone cares, not that anyone's like paying attention at this point, but it really does expose the double standard of like how the media and how, you know, prosecutors and stuff treated Biden versus Trump. Like, it really does seem to be quite obvious that there's a discrepancy there. But, yeah, I mean, this article is no good for anything except me showing you and going, see? That's all it's good for. So that's...
And then the ratio of people that care is precisely...
It's you. It's just you.
Me and you.
And
just
you,
me.
even you is questionable.
I'm half here. I'm like on a different planet today. So,
Adam's already on holidays.
um,
This dude needs a
I'm on
holiday from his
holidays,
holiday.
guys. I was at Friday, and I was just like
Mhm,
moving my mouse around the screen,
mhm,
and I'd clocked out, and I've clocked out yesterday. I clocked out today, and I'm still clocked out,
mhm.
at least for the next 2 weeks. Speaking of
Anyways,
clocked
so
out,
Russia hoax is not a hoax. It's a real thing. Like Russia, like this is an actual example of the Russian state trying to interfere in the American election process. Like, yeah, it's just yeah.
we haven't even talked about the drones.
The mystery
In the
drones. I
US.
watched.
The
I didn't
drones.
finish that video you sent me, but there is like
Uh,
fleets of drones. Can you talk to it like because I don't have the
ah,
detail to hand, but there's like fleets of drones just like appearing and
yeah.
disappearing in like random fucking places in New Jersey, and nobody seems to know what the fuck is going on.
So basically,
What?
it's such a long story, but like the short version is, yeah, human. When I say drones, like
Yeah.
human manufactured drones, like they're not aliens. They're just drones. Um, both rotary, so like quadcopters, as well as like fixed wing drones, have been for the last number of years, as it turns out, it's not just a recent thing, been reported around major US military installations.
Mm-hmm.
So it's recently come back to the fore again because, yeah, around New Jersey, people have just been seeing drones in the sky. The American authorities are saying actually most of these are probably manned aircraft, so it's all good. But yes, there's video and other pictures out there which make it seem like, yeah, there are actually at the moment for some reason just random drones flying around. Now, previously, there's been issues or situations where in different parts of the United States, in like Virginia, there have been repeated drone flyovers, and not just one or two drones. We're talking like formations,
Fleets of drones. You
fleets of
imagine
drones
Flight
coming
of the
one after the
Valkyries, da
other.
da 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 da
Yeah,
da
yeah.
da da. Yeah, a whole fleet of drones going over US military installations.
So just flying in and around US military installations, and
What could go wrong?
within sort of a predictable sort of at a predictable cadence, right? And some of them would change heights, and some of them would be there'd be little ones, there'd be big ones, different types, right? And that happened, like in the case of this Air Force base in, I think it was Virginia, multiple, like at the same time for like over the course of a couple of years, the drones would just rock up at the same sort of period of the year. So people in the US, and Trump's commented on it as well. He's like, we should find out what they are and like shoot them down or some shit.
And it's like trying to suggest that the government's lying about it, saying like, we should blast them because if they didn't know what it was, they would blast them, but they're keeping it under wraps, and I don't know why they would keep it under wraps. I'm like, Trump, you're going to be the president. You're getting intelligence briefings. You know everything the president knows about this. Like, why are you sowing additional distrust for the administration that you're about to take over? Like, what?
And then Joe Rogan like got on it and then was like doing it. He was like, "Man, I just feel really unsafe." Like, someone explained very rationally probably what's actually happening, and it's kind of a long story, but
Joe Rogan in Austin, Texas, on the other side of the fucking country, feels unsafe.
Yeah.
Okay,
he was
bro.
like, "Oh, I just feel really unsafe." But basically, look, I mean, it's probably either it's one of three things. It's either a foreign state actor that has got people on the ground that are, spinning these drones up and flying them, or they're launching them from like, ships off the coast. Because there's some that are inland and some that have been, that have come from the sea. So it's either a foreign state, which either means it's basically China, Russia, or probably Iran, but you'd think China out of the three of those. Or the other, and this is one that I thought was kind of interesting, it's like a US government red teaming exercise, which is where they basically test, their own, it's like a drill. They test their own.
And they are passing with flying colors, as it turns out.
And that's the reason why people are like, they're all very sus about the US government being like, oh, we don't actually, there's nothing to be afraid of. It's all good. Don't worry about it. People are saying, well, it's because they're our own drones and they're just being used in exercises.
It's just the thing the government says when something scary happens that they don't have the answer to. They're just like, it's just weather balloons. Okay, everyone just calm down. Everything's going to be fine. And then behind the scenes, they're like, We're currently at DEFCON 4. We need to sound the alarm. We need to get some experts in here because we are internally quietly freaking the fuck out.
Because at the moment, there's this weird law in the US, which is like you can't deploy the US military within the United States without like an act of Congress or some sort of other legislative measure, right? You can deploy the National Guard in certain circumstances, but you can't like the US military can't just start shooting things out of the sky because for all intents and purposes, those drones might be owned by someone in the public, and then you're basically firing on the public.
I just kind of thought that it was like a restricted airspace. But like, for example, I have a drone, right? Like just like a commercially available like DJI, is that it was? DJI drone. And it has restrictions. There's restrictions on like where you can fly it and how and how high. And if you try and bring your drone up past, I think it's like 150 feet high, it won't let you. The software will prevent you from flying above the restricted.
Oh, these aren't commercial drones. These are, by all accounts, military grade aircraft.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the difference. It's not someone just flying a little sneaky little camera drone.
No.
Okay.
So
isn't that even like scarier if someone's like either home brewing drones to fly over military installation? Like either scenario does not comfort me whatsoever. No. If it's like.
I guess what Joe Rogan was saying. Joe Rogan was like,
"I'm on the fucking disturbing." You know what? I'm on board with Joe Rogan. You guys, you talk to me around.
I mean, the thing is with these drones is because they fly, they're not flying very high, and they've got a small radar signature. They're very hard to track. So like they'll pop up on radar for a bit, and they'll be like, okay. Like in one situation,
the US military
they dispatched fighter jets to find these things, and then the things just fucking disappeared. So whether that means they crash into the ground or they landed, I don't know.
Or they just disappear off the radar because they're so small and you just can't see them. But like, I would have thought that US military installations is the one place where they'd be like, hey, bro, if we see a drone within like 1,000 meters of this place, we're just going to shoot it out. Shoot first, ask questions later. I thought that was the whole American ethos. Like,
well, yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. But like, some of the patterns and the tactics of... There are similarities between what the Chinese are doing in Taiwan, for instance, and some of the stuff that you've seen outside some of these Air Force bases in the US, where it's like you do things at a regular cadence, right? You just go, oh, look, this time of year, there's going to be a flight of 6 drones that come across, and that happens 3 years in a row. And then the 4th year, you think, oh, it's just going to be 6 drones that come flying past, and then bam, it's actually...
It's 11T,
Yeah, it's 11T, and then they, explode. So... there is a particular tactic that's called, which is
you think that America prior to this, has been a country that's uniquely benefited from their geographical location, right? Being all the other side of the Atlantic from their European neighbors, on all the other way, from the other side of the Pacific from their Asian neighbors. Like, they've got friendly allies to the north, being the Canadians. And like friendly / underpowered, allies to the south, being Mexico and South America and in those countries. Like, it is a country that has benefited uniquely from its geography in that it's like pretty well insulated from threats, given where they are. And so the idea that the Chinese could launch a cross-Pacific attack on them like that, I think would and should be scaring the absolute shit out of.
It may well be. As you said, they're not going to admit that.
I suppose what's the statement going to be? Hi there. We'll just keep the questions to a minimum. Just wanted to let you know, just a quick public statement on the drones that have been flying over Jersey City. Yeah, we are fucking shit scared. Very, very unnerved as to what's going on. We don't know what the fuck's happening. A lot of people are freaking out.
Can't do anything about it.
Can't do anything about it. It's really like shit's fucked. Hey, so stay tuned. Carol from Washington Post. Did you have a question? What's the statement going to be?
So it's been going around in the media, and people have been sort of talking about it. But it's similar to like the weather balloon that happened, balloons plural that happened
weather balloon
a couple of years ago, which were just Chinese balloons.
Spy balloon.
They were like, oh, it's a weather balloon. It went off course.
Mm-hmm.
30 of them, did they
Yeah,
say?
it's the weirdest thing that 30 balloons went off course from Xinjiang and somehow ended up over Seattle's Boeing plant. I don't know what's going on there. That's so weird. That's weird that would happen. I get it's like I feel like, realistically though, what can the US do about those kinds of like balloons or or drones and surveillance? Like as you say, they leave such a small footprint. They're not likely to show up on radar. They're small. They could conceivably get in, get out. Like what realistically can you do about that? Like it's like that Spider-Man. Which one was that? No Way Home with all the drones. It's just like a swarm of killer drones.
It was
the one with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh no, Jake Gyllenhaal. I can't remember, but yeah,
I think it was No Way Home. The second one, where it was just like, how do you fight against just like a swarm of drones? Like, there's really nothing you can do about it. Like,
yeah, it's hard because like the military grade ones, it's much harder to like disable them. You've got to have, there's those jamming wand things that they've got. Look like bazookas, but they're just
and they can't shoot them down.
Antennas. Especially
over New Jersey. New Jersey apparently is the most populated state in the United States. So it's just you can't just
some of these
shoot them out of the sky, right? Like,
and some of them aren't very small either. They're like, the size of a small car kind of thing.
Or something,
So it's a tricky one for the US military. I don't know. And I think the best course of action is to keep calm and carry on as they are doing. So that's the drone situation. Impromptu discussion, always fun.
Listen to us drone on
about the drones.
Wait.
Comedy gold. Peter Dutton in Australia.
Speaking of comedy gold
now. Peter Dutton has been a few announcements this week on their energy policy. So they announced last week or the week before that the extra costings on their nuclear plan, which the CSIRO widely panned again for the second time. But now they're saying, given that we're not going to have any of these nuclear plants online for the next 20 years, we need to.
We've just found out.
We need to have a stopgap measure to plug that supply issue, and they've looked through the brochure, the photo album of past policies and the Facebook memories. They've looked through all those, and they've come up with this thing called a gas-led recovery.
Where have I heard that before? Was it? This is this day 4 years ago. I think it's just popped up in my Facebook feed.
Yeah.
This day 4 years ago when Scott Morrison was promising a gas-led recovery. That's so weird. And he thought, that was such a great policy then. We should revive it. We should reheat this, pop it in the microwave, and just reheat this policy and serve it up. And we, the little policy piggies, will jostle up to the trough and just gobble it down, won't we? We just give us your gas fed recovery, love it.
Yum. So basically, what they're saying is to be able to bring power bills down. Now they're going to introduce a bunch of policies for the election, which would be that they would increase the amount of gas supply. Now, as to how they would do that and over what time frame, it's unclear.
Well, they were getting unnecessarily bogged down with specifics on the nuclear plan, and so they've decided to pivot into something that's much more ephemeral, much more amorphous. Don't worry about that nuclear. You're asking too many questions. How about gas-led recovery?
So they want to.
Is this anything? Is this something?
I think they're talking about expanding watering down legislation to expand the extraction of gas from various parts of the country. So particularly like Queensland.
As far as I'm aware, there's no obligation on the fossil fuel extraction companies to sell that to Australians at any kind of reduced cost, right? Like,
I don't know how. It would somehow.
If it's just about increasing supply, then you're just increasing the supply of a global commodity, the vast majority of which is already sold overseas.
Yeah, I don't understand.
How does that help Australians at all?
I guess the theory is by unlocking more supply and expanding gas fields, you therefore increase the supply and therefore the price drops.
Supply globally.
I don't understand how that works with the local market.
Because like West
I mean,
Australia has got restrictions where they say 15% of the
yeah,
whatever it is gas that's extracted has to go back and be sold into the local market, not at global commodity prices at like a reduced rate, right?
yeah.
So
I'm sure
that
they
I
could introduce
understand.
legislation around that, but it's not in place
No,
yet.
they're not going to.
All we're talking
But
about
they
is
could.
just
They certainly could.
it's just watering down environmental legislation to be able to allow gas fields to expand. Now we talked about gas several weeks ago on this podcast, and we talked about how there's an issue where we are going to run out of gas, or we're going to have gas shortages from 2026, okay, with the current supply that there is, particularly on the eastern seaboard. And part of that reason is that, like, the pipelines and the ways to feed out gas from various parts of the capital cities and from the gas fields to where the gas needs to be used
Consumed,
is
yeah.
fairly limited. So like the major gas reserves in Victoria are currently dwindling down, and Victoria has a bunch of legislation around.
But didn't we talk recently about how Twiggy Forrest was going to open up like a gas?
Well, that was him. That was
port.
Twiggy. That wasn't the government. That was him.
But he was in talks
gonna
with the
open up-
government to allow and
Well, he
to, like,
was.
for them to guarantee funding
New
for the
South
project or
Wales.
something. Yeah.
So, like, but the thing is, though, the government, I'm calling them the government, the coalition.
Not yet, certainly.
Not yet.
Just wait, Adam. Wait until May.
The coalition are flagging this policy as a way of bringing down energy bills. But the reality is, what they're talking about is just watering down legislation to allow the private sector to expand gas extraction.
That's what I mean.
Which doesn't happen overnight.
Just because,
right? Like that's not
because the private industry can go on more untrammeled, like, fossil fuel exploration doesn't necessarily mean that would flow through into lower prices for Australians. And even if it did, it wouldn't happen for some time. Like,
well, yeah, I mean, they've got to go out, explore the sites where the gas would be,
develop
dig
it,
the wells, get the pipelines in place to be able to pump it out, or get the facilities to transfer it from A to B. Then you've got to get it into the market and then sell it. And they're talking about particularly in Queensland's Surat basin, which would have about 40,000 petajoules of gas reserves, and that would
I'm not
cover
up to date on my petajoules, I'll be honest.
the 20. I don't even know what that means. 20,000 petajoules of LNG exporters have pledged to offshore customers. So basically, the 40,000 that's in this basin would cover, what we've been already obligated in contracts to foreign customers, and also introduce extra supply into the local market. But this is my question is, one, how do you get that gas from Queensland down to, say, Victoria, right? Like, just because Queensland's got shitloads of gas doesn't necessarily mean New South Wales and Victoria have shitloads of gas. And yeah, that will take 3 years at a minimum to spin up and take effect. So apparently in Queensland, there's this thing called the Surat Basin, which has about 40,000 petajoules of gas reserves somewhere in that basin, right? Now, that would cover both the existing contracts that our gas companies have to external or offshore customers, and would also have leftover gas reserves for, I guess, local customers, right? Local supply. But it's unclear as to how they would get that gas from Queensland to, say, New South Wales and Victoria.
Right.
I don't know how the gas gets distributed. It is, it's kind of unclear. And it's an issue that was previously been raised with, the gas network in Australia, is that it's not as simple as just, we'll just increase supply. There's also infrastructure we have to think about as well.
Yeah, you can't just dig something up in Perth and ship it over to Victoria, right? It's a big country. Yeah. Like it's literally like, the pipeline between Russia and Germany, right? Like that is the kind of infrastructure undertaking that would need to take place in order for us to, move that gas around effectively, right?
So just because there's extra gas in Queensland doesn't necessarily mean that Victoria's gas prices may or may not be cheaper. Like there's a lot of there's a few variables.
It's a global commodity.
Here. And it's going to take time. Like they're not going to, they're pitching this as we will bring gas prices down in the short term. Well, it's going to take 3 or 4 years, I would say, to be able to, for it to have any effect. If assuming all things go well,
it's not going to
and they
affect
work
your
out
gas
all
prices,
issues.
this summer or or even next year.
And to be clear, like the Labor government has also realised they need to have a gas strategy, which they've now implemented after previously sort of like waning on the idea. But yeah, it's obviously, and this is probably how it could transition to our next article, is that it's just another way that the Nationals and the Liberal Party are able to satisfy the lobbying they've received from various mining companies and fossil fuel companies.
They don't give a shit about the people, and they're just trying to jerk off their buddies in the fossil fuel industry. It's the weirdest thing.
It's a little bit like that. Now, Matt Canavan, who's a senator, is a national senator,
and just
Matt
coal lover. Just loves coal. Rubbing his face in coal. Just big fan coal fan, Matt Canavan.
Yep.
Coal fan,
and we say that
coal fan Canavan.
Coal fan Canavan. We say that as a joke, but he did actually at a press conference have just coal dust smeared all over
it's
his face.
his Twitter bio picture is his face like covered in coal dust, like he's some fucking hard yakka, mate. You know, not like these bloody softies nowadays. It's me, bloody Matt Canavan, down at the mines with the regular folk, with the people. Yeah, it's literally his Twitter bio is him like cosplaying a coal miner. It's fucking ridiculous.
This career politician.
Yeah. This guy who gets paid more than both of us combined, trying to act like a man of the people, get absolutely fucked.
So he was on a podcast over the last
of course he was
week.
Naturally. Where else is the natural abode of the right wing shithead but a podcast?
They said on a podcast.
Yeah, no, I'm fully aware of the irony.
And in that podcast, he was asked about the coalition's nuclear policy, which of course, links in with their gas policy and everything else.
Yeah, insofar as either of them is a real policy. But yeah, go
on. Obviously, publicly, the coalition has been saying that the nuclear thing is, it's planning for the future. It's going to bring it's the cheaper option. It's going to bring prices down.
Makes perfect sense. What's a couple of trillion between friends?
Yeah.
By the way, Dutton, do you want it in your district? We'll pop the nuclear waste in your district, mate, or probably not. Hey, probably a different one.
Yeah. So Matt Canavan basically came out and admitted that the party's nuclear policy is a political fix.
What?
Conceding that it
seemed so serious. That's crazy.
Conceding
crazy.
that it is not the cheapest form of
what?
Power. And that's
he can read numbers? That's crazy.
He can read numbers if under great duress.
When he chooses to,
can read numbers.
Yeah, he has trouble seeing it sometimes through his coal smudged visage. I think that's what it is. The coal dust gets in his eyes. It's got to be it.
Indeed. So Senator Canavan told a podcast in August. This is in August actually, that his party was not serious about nuclear power being a solution to high energy costs. Nuclear is not going to cut it. I mean, we're as guilty of this too. We're not serious. We're latching on to nuclear. I fully support getting the ban lifted. That's the ban on nuclear. We've got the bill in the Senate to get rid of it. We should build some nuclear power stations. They'll help our system. But latching onto it as a silver bullet, as a panacea because it fixes a political issue for us, that it's low emission and it's reliable, but it ain't the cheapest form of power.
Which, of course, is correct. Like, it is low emission. It is reliable. It is not cheap. It would take a lot of time to get up and running and online. And those are all the things that I said about nuclear energy when his coalition proposed this dogshit plan, whenever it was, several months ago, right?
It's almost like Peter Dutton and David Littleproud and the rest of the merry band of Conservative members are just saying shit to try and wedge a political issue.
There's a word for that when you know something is not true and then you say it anyway.
Some sort of liar.
I think that's how it's pronounced. Liars. They're a pack of bullshit artists. Yeah, that's what it's called.
Yeah. Now, ordinarily, I think this interview, in like, let's say 30 years ago, this would be enough to have Peter Dutton resign.
Oh, right. Peter Dutton would have blown up if this was like, Yeah, if this was the 1990s, Peter Dutton would have needed to commit harakiri on live national television in order to abrogate himself in front of the Australian, masses for this, obvious oversight. Like this is in a previous era, where shame still existed. This would be a political scandal where a member of your coalition admits that your chief policy platform prior to an election was complete horseshit and convected was basically conjured out of thin air in order to solve a political problem. Like that might be a scandal in another era. Not this era, obviously. Nothing matters.
No, nothing matters now.
We're in the darkest timeline, so nothing matters. We've all got tiny little black mustaches. That's how you know it's the darkest timeline. So.
Yeah.
He's going to be the next prime minister, isn't he, Dutton? I feel like it's happening. Like I feel like we're in the midst of it happening right now.
I mean, anything they do, they'll have to take 3 years to spin anything up, and then in doing so,
nuclear takes an average of 7 years. An average of 7 years to get a new nuclear reactor up and running. 7 years. So it's like it wouldn't even be. It would be the third Dutton government 9 years into the 1,000 years of darkness. That we would actually start to see any of these fucking plants come online. Like it's such a ridiculous. That's why I was talking about it last week. It's not going to happen. Like you can talk about it and you can talk about modeling and you can talk about fucking power plants, or we'll just put nuclear plants where the old coal plants are, and it's fucking great planet. Like let's get around it. Like that kind of like coked up guy at a club energy where it's just like, it's just a fucking good plan. It's a business. We should absolutely get in. Yeah, we should absolutely fucking get into business together. Like, it's such a good plan. Think about it. Like, it's an untapped market. It's absolute fucking green space, right?
Start high-fiving a million angels.
I don't know if it's on. I don't know if it's, like, working, but I'm feeling fucking fantastic, bro.
How good are the vibes?
It's absolute what a tune. Like, it's that energy where it's just, like, bullshit artist on cocaine energy coming from the coalition at the moment. And because we know it's not going to happen. It will not happen. There's too many, like, nobody wants nuclear in their backyard. There's existing legislation that actually prevents it. No one wants this. And yet they're still talking like it's real thing that's actually, even if they win government, which it seems likely that they will at this stage, this policy, like, we may as well be talking about the, like, the fairy policy or like flying dolphin policy. It's just not going to happen.
What's he say on Wolf of Wall Street? He's like, it's a onesie, it's a woolsey, it's fairy dust.
Yeah, fakakta. Yeah, it's a fugazi.
Fugazi. Yeah, that's it. I've just butchered that quote. Bless Matthew McConaughey's heart.
It's a fugazi. That's exactly what it is.
It's a fugazi. It's fairy dust. Doesn't exist. Speaking of not existing, Apple has in the firing line for their new AI feature after it's making stuff up, basically, false headlines. So basic,
So for those who know about large language models like ChatGPT, like bloody Claude, the way that they're constructed is all about finding the next most likely statistical element. So if I say a quick brown fox, it will be the next logical sentence for a large language model to create will be jumps over the lazy dog, because it sees the associations of these particular words in this order, comes up with associations with these particular words in this order next. It's basically just working out associations, right? Quick brown fox is associated with lazy dog. And that is the thing we know because we see multiple different examples of it all over the place. And what a large language model is essentially is just crafting those associations, saying this word typically follows this word, typically follows this word, and creating responses based on that. So given that, there's no way to inject a kind of like verification into that process. Like a Google search is a very different thing to what a large language model does. A Google search is based on a number of different factors, including things like backlinks, how reliable is the site, how many things that are also asking this question are pointing to that site. There's a whole Google algorithm that goes into place when you search
Yeah.
something that itemizes all of the various things on the web and then uses the inference to try and pull the most relevant response.
Yeah.
And even that is not perfect in terms of like verification, giving you a correct answer, because someone on some websites, you'll know this as a parent when you go, is it okay for kids to eat X? And you'll have one website that says it's absolutely fine for kids to eat X. And then you'll have the entry right under that saying, under no circumstances should you absolutely give X to your child at any point in their lifetimes. You know, so that's what a Google search will give you, but at least you're getting like presumably reliable or semi-reliable sources of information about that thing. A large language model does not do that. Okay, what a large language model is a prediction engine. And so depending on the information that you feed into it, you might get very varied results. And what these things are called in the AI game are hallucinations, where you might get a situation where the large language model is, you know, trying to make something that looks truthy sounding, but of course is made up of fictitious horse shit. And so you might ask it a question like, how many stones should I include in my pizza recipe? And it'll say, you should include 3 stones in your pizza. It's like, actually, you should include no stones in your pizza recipe because stones are not edible, right? It is a technology that is limited with regards to its ability to tell you the truth, right? That's just a limitation of the technology as it currently stands.
And so that's the technology. That's what we're talking. That's sort of how it works. What we're talking about here is Apple Intelligence,
which is basically taken ChatGPT and they're integrating it into their technology stack. It's interesting that Apple isn't building their own large language models. They're basically taking it, they're licensing ChatGPT's model and they're using it within their products. And you might have seen ads about this going around where it's like, you know, what's that actress's name from The Last of Us, Bella Ramsey? Is that her name? Where it's like, oh, she's meeting her agent and she hasn't read the email. So she asks, Apple Intelligence to like summarize the email for her, and she like quickly gets a quick summary of the email, and she can go into the meeting and she's all happy and confident. And it's like, okay, I don't really see why the AI technology needs to be like integrated into the hardware, but that seems to be a thing that's happening now. You see a lot of like Windows Copilot PCs coming out where it's like, oh, these ones are like maximized for, artificial intelligence, and they've got specific hardware.
The processing is done locally as opposed to being off on a server somewhere where you send the information off, it's done on a server, and then it comes back. And it's
processed offsite. It's I guess they've got hardware
it's more efficient.
More efficient, and it happens on device. Like as to who asked for that, why that's a necessity, I don't know. But it seems to be a trend that's happening a lot in the computer hardware space.
It's cheaper for the companies that run the server farms because they don't have to have as many servers, George. But one of the features of Apple Intelligence is that it allows users to group notifications. So the BBC aren't particularly happy because they are claiming that Apple Intelligence basically grouped a bunch of news stories together, including an article from the BBC, which claimed that everyone's favorite murderer or alleged murderer, Luigi Mangione, had shot himself.
Which
has not
did
shot
not happen.
himself.
Yeah, to be clear.
So, yeah, I'm not exactly sure how it appeared, but basically, if you imagine you're scrolling through notifications and it sort of inferred that was what had happened.
So the way it appears in this article is like it's a BBC News notification, and then there's like a number of different notifications grouped in it. So it says Luigi Mangione shoots himself, semicolon, Syrian mother hopes Assad pays the price, semicolon, South Korea police raid Yoon Suk Yeol's office, which, by the way, we didn't even talk about the whole follow-up with that and the impeachment with Yoon Suk Yeol, but we haven't got time. Okay, we simply haven't got the time.
We haven't got the time, George. This notification has BBC. Okay, I can see the photo you're referencing now. It has BBC News as the publisher.
It's presenting it as BBC News, as like giving you a notification, but it's essentially like a summary of the information that's coming through from BBC. So it's to an untrained eye, it looks like a news alert from the BBC. And you're seeing factual information when, of course, it's not factual information. It's just something that some large language model is kind of like scraped together and served up to you as though it's like a summary of all the different things that are coming through, right?
So yeah, Apple have not Apple. BBC have said have complained to Apple, and Apple has yet to comment allegedly to that.
The group Reporters Without Borders has subsequently called on Apple to remove the technology, and yeah, as you say, Apple has made no comment. It's.
I mean, they could fix that. It would just be a software update, as to take that feature off the platform.
So, however, a large part of Apple in particular, and I suppose this is also probably true of Samsung and other smartphone manufacturers, there's kind of a point of saturation has been started to that we're arriving at a culture with regards to smartphones, right? Where people have a smartphone. I'm still rocking my iPhone 13 Pro Max. Like, it's good. It's like 3 generations old. It's coming on. So it's 3 years, 4 years. Like, I don't need a new phone. There's nothing that the iPhone 16 does that this one doesn't do. This one's got a really good camera. The battery life is still pretty good. I can shoot 4K videos. I can, you know, like, you can do all the things.
The iterative jumps in technology are not. They're not doubling anymore like they used to. They are.
When you went from the iPhone 6, to the iPhone X, that was a massive jump in terms of the phone's performance, the quality of the camera, all these sorts of things. Now we're just getting pretty minor upgrades on the hardware and the software. And so you're entering the cycle where you don't need to buy a new phone. You never needed to, but you as the consumer don't feel as though you need to buy a new phone every year or every other year. You could buy a new phone once every 4 years and you'll be fine. And that's really not good for Apple's business model, because their business model is predicated on selling you more and more expensive phones every year. And so what's happened is there's a point of saturation that's happened in the market where everyone that can afford a smartphone has a smartphone, more or less, now. And so the amount of growth that they can get out of the sales of these devices is starting to diminish. And that's why you're seeing the prices of these devices go up over time. We're trying to value add, we're trying to add all these features, and then that'll justify the more expensive price tag. And that's why we can charge you $2,500 for a fully spec'd up iPhone 16 Pro Max, because, now it's got Apple Intelligence in there. It's got services. It's got all these other things that come bundled in with the phone that you don't get if you just have the previous phone. So it's a marketing ploy from them. Same thing with the Apple Copilot, the Windows Copilot Microsoft Intelligence. They're all trying to do the same thing. They're all hitching their wagon to this star, being AI, being like, we hope AI is the next big thing that can give us a big productivity explosion. That's going to be the next big thing that people are going to want to pay for. They can't possibly live without. I think a year from now, 2 years from now, I think the promise of AI will not have lived up to all of these expectations. I think there's a real bubble going on at the moment where everyone thinks that AI is the next big thing. NVIDIA has become the most valuable company of all time based on the expectations of what's going to happen with AI. And I think the market's going to have a real pullback where they go, okay, we've given you $11 trillion. Where are our returns? And the market's going to go, they're coming. It's definitely coming. And I think I expect there's going to be a big market correction when everyone realizes that the Jetsons fucking AI future that we're all thinking was going to happen 6 months ago doesn't materialize. Obviously it's an incredibly powerful technology. It does a lot of interesting things. I use it. We use it as part, my workplace has got their own instance of ChatGPT set up because they recognize that it's a useful technology for us to have access to. I think there is value to it. I'm not saying it's completely pointless, but I don't think that the sky high expectations that everyone has for AI are going to materialize. And once the market starts realizing that, I think there's going to be a pretty big pullback.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, there are certain use cases where it's effective, and people that have money to build ecosystems where AI can run their lives. It can be their secretary. It can turn the TV on. It can change the lighting in their home. People who have got the infrastructure, the money, or whatever, and the means to actually fully and who are people who are also happy to give all their information,
all their data,
data into the cloud. For people that are willing to do that, sure, it will have an impact on their lives. But I would say that for most working class people, the phone itself is probably the most they'll ever have. And really, if it's just a case of And because no one's going to be talking, everyone assumes, oh, we're going to talk to our phones. No, if you're on a train, I'm not going to fucking talk into my phone.
I don't want to talk to my phone.
I'm just going to type. I'm going to click a button and make it do something.
Mm.
So while the phone can, like my phone can do a bunch of crazy shit. Like it's got a bunch of features that I just don't use because it's quicker and quieter and just simpler just to go click and do a Google search.
Yeah.
You know, could I set up like multiple reminders, integrate calendars, and God knows what else? Yes, I could, but I'm not doing that because I have no utility for that. There is no need for it.
It's. I mean, you could do it. It just doesn't add enough value to your life for you to do it. It's just like it's actually not that hard.
There's no value add
to just like read an email. Like if someone sends you an email and you're going to a meeting and you should have read the email, Bella Ramsey. You should just read the fucking email. Like you should just be a good person and do what you're fucking supposed to do. Do what you said you would do and read it's not that hard to read an email rather than having a tree in the Amazon rainforest burned down so you can have an email fucking summarized for you on the fly.
I mean, is AI useful to distill a 300-page report into an executive summary? Yes, it is useful.
It will be.
How many people are reading 300-page reports?
In the first place. Yeah, no.
In the first place.
Like, they'll probably just read the executive summary that came with the report in the first place. Like, it really feels like it is an answer to a question that no one asked, which is like, I expect, I make the joke that, so what I do is bid writing, right? I write bids, write proposals to try and win business for my organization, right? And I think there's a lot of AI slop out there that other bid writers are putting into their bids and just shooting
100%.
off without even looking at it.
And it's watery gobbledygook. It doesn't actually make any sense.
AI slop, like, oh, why is your company so good? And our company is the best company because reasons 1, 2, and 3. Like it's very pro forma, like mid shit, really, that gets churned out from this stuff.
Yeah.
And the thing is I bet a lot of bid writers are trying to save time and just putting AI slop out there to just, get bids out on time and just maximize the amount of output. And I bet the people who are reviewing bids on the other side are using AI to summarize that. So it's just AI talking to AI back and forth. And no human is actually giving a shit. And exactly right. It is an AI human centipede. I run the human centipede that doesn't have any humans involved in it. Where it's just like
it's like getting its own
huffing its own farts. Like the computers reading computers and summarizing computers and then creating responses for the computers to send back to the other computers that get summarized by computers. Like it just feels like all of this extra legwork to achieve what we already had before, which was people creating documents and other people reading the things that was created and sent to them. Like I just don't really know where the kind of like 1800s gold rush is going to come from based on that, like
how much more, if you want to talk in terms of economic productivity, I don't necessarily know if there will be a monumental spike solely caused by AI. If anything, it'll just mean that people's jobs disappear. Which
I can't remember
the profits gained from people getting fired aren't necessarily going to be reinvested back into the economy as a way of furthering capital, right? It's just people, if the company can make a 2% profit by maybe doing some writing or some secretarial jobs with AI, they'll do it. But it's not going to drastically change the scope of the economy. It'll just increase corporate profits.
No, if you're if you're a local council and you need to send people to go pick up the bins, like that doesn't make any part of that process better or more efficient or faster. Or like if you are an organization that does real things in the economy, AI doesn't really help with that all that much.
I mean, AI. What I would wait for is when AI gets to a point where you can feed information into it. Like, here is, I mean, I know a lot of coders use AI. Like write me a set of code in Python to do this, right? So there are definitely efficiencies with things like coding, computer programming. I'll give it that. There are efficiencies in that kind of thing. There are efficiencies around maybe meeting schedulings and that kind of thing. but I'm not sure, like, at what point do we get to a situation where we go, here is a complex engineering problem. Like, we need to build a bridge. Let's use that example. The bridge needs to cross a kilometer wide river, needs to be able to hold, this much weight, needs to last for 100 years. You need to draw the plans for that bridge and give me all the engineering details and specifications. At what point, and give me a construction plan as to how we actually build that bridge. Like, how do we do the pylons? At what point does AI get to a point where they go, great, we'll slap that out for you. And they can give you an entire...
What they can do is they can look at other versions of that plan and create a facsimile of that plan, but like the bridge is missing legs or something. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's not going to be a perfect anything to, especially with regards to like visualization in the 3D space. AI is very not good at that now. And this is, even with the recent, I forget the name of it was like a video AI software that was released to the public I think it was by ChatGPT recently, and MKBHD, the YouTuber, did a review of it, and he's like, it doesn't quite get, where it's like there's got a feature where you can turn a 3D image into a video, and it'll basically like fill in the gaps. But what it doesn't have is any concept of like movement or space or legs. Whenever something's walking with legs, the legs will switch because it doesn't quite understand like how objects exist in space. What it can give you is a facsimile of how things move, but to the human eye it looks weird and uncanny, but because it's not correct, it doesn't comport with the way we've mapped the world in our heads. It just looks enough like the other examples that's been shown. So
I think the image based stuff, like human, virtual humans, which are allegedly meant to be used for like training videos and stuff, right? Again, there's an efficiency dividend. Let's not hire actors. Let's just get
the
AI.
actors. You know what? The barely surviving actors have had it too good for too long. Those stock photo actors, those fat cats.
So let's get an AI software program to write a training program.
Those entry level photographers, too good for too long.
So look, I think those kind of things will get there. Like, I think in terms of AI drawings, that they will get there. Like, it's just about feeding more content into the machine. But I guess it's about having quality content, to your point before, and not having just slop fed back into its own mechanism. So
but I think there's a larger concern with all of that, right? Because it's not just like, oh, if we get enough material in, it'll eventually be correct. I think there are some, with the way the software, the mechanism by which large language models and the image-based creation software works, there's a kind of like limitations of the technology as it currently stands. Like, and the problem is that with each upgrade in terms of the data set, to get an order of magnitude improvement in the accuracy and utility of the software, you need to have an order of magnitude larger data set. And they're running into a problem now where they've just can't get enough data. Like, they've used all of the text that they can find on the internet. In order to feed into this model, and it's still not enough. Which is why they're coming to agreements with New York Times and journalistic institutions for them to be like, just give us all of the fucking content. They've got agreements with Reddit basically being like, give us all of your content that's on Reddit so we can pipe it into this model to just maximize the amount of shit that's going in. But like, you might notice that the stuff that's on Reddit isn't necessarily accurate because it's just people talking on the internet, right? So I think there are kind of like, we're starting to find the outer limits of what this technology can actually achieve in its current iteration. Maybe there's going to be some generational leap forward and they're going to do things differently or more creatively in a way that doesn't have these limitations. But as it currently stands, like this is just how large language models work.
Well, that's one type. A large language model is one kind of AI. Like, there are other types as well. I don't necessarily know a whole lot about it, but large language model is when we talk about AI, we talk about large language models and we sort of equate them as being one and the same thing. But there are other types of we're like quantum computing, like, as a concept, right? Like, that is a burgeoning field, which, let's say in the next 10 years, quantum computing might become a thing that is.
But I guess the point that I'm making is it's not just like feed more in and the models will get better and smarter. I feel like we've kind of like hit at least with the current generation of technology, we've kind of hit the limit as to how good it can get based on how much more you can feed into it. And you also have the problem of like the recursive, like, huffing your own farts of like the more AI generated stuff gets created and gets put out there, the more of that same AI generated stuff is going to get fed back into the models and creates a recursive loop of like, like in shit.
We've said that.
Yeah. It's like there's a number of problems beyond just like we need to get more information in. There are like physical limits as to the amount of information that's out there that we can feed in.
Yeah, but my point is
there's a lot of problems that they're encountered, and it's just like enormously expensive to run search, like to do to get ChatGPT to create a search and to summarize information, put it together for you is enormously expensive in terms of against a Google search with regard to the amount of electricity that's consumed in creating that search query, but also in the amount of water that's used up in order to cool down the servers that are, running that search. And ChatGPT isn't like, like OpenAI is not a company that's like financially viable yet. They're getting billions of dollars of revenue, but they're not profitable. And so they're running a deficit off the back of venture capital. All these investors that have poured all this money in thinking this is going to be the next big thing.
Your question is when they're going to come to collect.
Or how sustainable is this? This is not going to be sustainable to just like have any random idiot on the internet, burning your cash and resources and water in order to run search queries for free. Like at a certain point, the business needs to be viable in order to be able to continue. So how is that going to work? It's just like there's a lot of unanswered questions around all of this. And I think, the idea that, AI is just going to like solve the 21st century is like, I feel like that is misplaced.
Yeah, there's a lot of excited YouTube videos on the internet where people are claiming that kind of thing. But
the same guys that were crypto bros 3 years ago, talking about their NFT collection, how the blockchain was going to fucking revolutionize smart contracts. And now the same guys that tell you, artificial intelligence is going to revolutionize. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it could just be the next big fad that has some useful applications, some not useful applications, but is not actually going to be the thing that changes the 21st century like everyone seems to think it is, right?
Yeah.
Except now we don't know if that girl with too many fingers is real or not. That's probably the main, is just we don't know how we're going to trust any video that we ever watch ever again. That's probably going to be the major change.
Is the booby real or is it not real? No one knows.
Yeah. On that note, we have been, we are, and we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our Salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that are ruining the world, that have, do, or ever will exist at our handle at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and mother flipping TikTok. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky at George Tsipos.
And you can follow me down to the Liberal Party marketing headquarters where I'll be opening the door and finding, oh, wait, it's just a large language model. That is all that is running in the Liberal Party marketing department.
It's just
a server. It's just a server.
I'm just imagining like the opening graphic of Severance where it's like a little guy playing on a computer inside a guy's head, except that guy is Peter Dutton. It's just a ChatGPT large language model talking about nuclear energy and how good it is.
Yeah.
It's
just scrape the data on Scott Morrison's 2020, whatever it was.
Please summarize gas-led recovery and act like it's my plan, Peter. So we've reached the end of 2024. We're probably going to take a couple of weeks off over the holidays.
Indeed.
Podcasting. What have been your biggest memories, your fondest memories from 2024? Adam, what's been one of the highlights for you?
Well, personally, I got married, so that's quite lovely.
That's pretty good. That's a good highlight.
You've put me on the spot. I am scrolling back through our articles. Look, I mean,
I'm just looking for anything because I feel like 2024 has been I say this every year.
So much
we get to the end of the year and I'm like, see you 2022. 2023 is going to be so much better. And they're like, see you 2023. You sucked. 2024 is going to be so much better. And now I'm like, see you 2024. Just like that meme of Ben Affleck just smoking a cigarette that just like completely defeated. Just like, See you 2024. I hope for nothing in 2025. Like,
I guess the big thing's the US election, right? Like that's that's kind
the
of
low
been
light,
crazy
certainly.
thing. That's the low light. And yeah, I don't know if they're having any highlights. There's definitely some comedy gold in there, some nuggets. But yeah, it's I guess this year I have questioned more about what is real and what isn't than I have in previous years. So that's always fun.
Not a good thing.
Like,
that
I
time
read
they're
the headline
questioning
and I'm
reality.
like, is that real? Like, is that a real thing that's happened?
No, you're
is
like,
that
no,
a
bro,
fraud?
look at the fingers. You got to look at the fingers, bro. That's
Like
the key.
when the drone story came out, I was like, oh, that doesn't sound real. Like that's got to be a conspiracy theory nonsense. So
No,
like,
turns out it's in the New York Times.
Yep. Crazy.
So it sounds like the highlight of your year is the complete collapse of any kind of shared epistemology. It's just the absolute flattening of the information space. And
they returned the astronauts that were stuck on the station.
That was pretty good.
They came back.
That was good.
They were stuck on the station for like 9 months or something.
Or did they? Check the fingers. On that note, we have been, we are, and we always will be Unnatural Selection. Love your faces. We'll see you next year.
Oh, Rishi Sunak lost the election.
That was pretty good.
Oh, Bruce Lerman.
Bruce Lerman what?
Lost everything.
That's pretty good. A bit of Schadenfreude.
Yeah.